What's going on, guys? For those of you that are new to the channel, my name is Ty, and today in this video, we're going to be doing a March Madness Marvel movie bracket. Now listen, for those of you that are not, from the US, or maybe you're not too into sports, currently in the United States, there is a massive sporting event going on called March Madness, where a bunch of college basketball teams from across the country play each other head-to-head, 64 different teams in a bracket-style tournament to leave one sole champion. So today, we're going to be doing that with a bunch of random Marvel projects, as you guys can see on screen here. I've got 64 different Marvel projects that we're going to be comparing today. Now listen, I can't talk about every single one in depth, but either way, we're going to be going and seeing who's the king, which one's going to be at the top of the hill. Now listen, I'm going to be honest, this is a random bracket from online. I didn't make this, so honestly, there's a bunch of stuff on here that I haven't seen. Well, just a couple things I haven't seen, and even some random Marvel projects, but either way, I'm just looking forward to just comparing some projects that I probably wouldn't usually compare, and we're just going to see what the best project on here is. Let's just kick things off here. We've got Captain America, the First Avenger, going against the Agent Carter show. Honestly, I haven't seen the Agent Carter show. In my opinion, it's one of the better superhero origin films. I just think it has like this really warm style to it that Joe Johnston, the director, brings to it. And yeah, let's just keep moving because we've got 64 different movies to talk about here. Next up, we've got Agent Carter the short, I believe, against Captain Marvel. I'm going to have to do Captain Marvel because I have not seen the Agent Carter short. Honestly, I don't think Captain Marvel's the worst movie in the world either. It has some enjoyable moments. Let's just keep things moving here, though. Next up, we've got Iron Man versus Iron Man 2. This is a bit tough here. Not really, honestly. I'm going to have to go with Iron Man. I'm an Iron Man 2 defender, but at the same time, I think that Iron Man, kind of like Captain America the First Avenger, is one of the best superhero origin films of all time. There's no denying that it's even one of the greatest superhero films of all time. So quite honestly, it's going to have to move on. Next up is going to be Thor versus the Thor's Hammer Agent Coulson short. Gonna have to be moving on Thor because I have not seen that short, and also I think Thor's pretty solid, so I feel pretty good about that. Next up's gonna be another Marvel short against the Hulk. Gonna have to move on the Hulk because I haven't seen the short. We'll talk about it in the next round. Next up is going to be the Item 47 short against the Avengers. I'm gonna have to move on the Avengers. The Avengers is one of the greatest superhero films of all time, in my opinion. One of the best MCU films. I think it's just an incredible, monumental Marvel film. It's gonna be moving on. Next up is going to be Iron Man 3 versus Thor the Dark World. Kind of in that earlier, middle of the ground, sort of MCU phase era over there, like that early 2010s type of time. I think I'm going to go with Iron Man 3 here. Thor the Dark World, I don't think it's as bad as everyone says it is, but at the same time, I just think Iron Man 3 is better. There's a lot more emotion in there. I really like how Tony's dealing with like this PTSD. He's trying to figure out who he is, what he wants to be with the Iron Man. The extremist stuff's really interesting. So yeah, let's move on. Next is going to be the Winter Soldier versus All Hail the King, the little short, the Iron Man 3 short. Winter Soldier's moving on, one of the greatest superhero films of all time. We've been starting off with some bangers. Next up is going to be Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. versus Guardians of the Galaxy. Haven't seen Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Plus, I love Guardians of the Galaxy. Sorry about that. I Am Groot versus Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. I didn't even watch I Am Groot. I had no interest. I feel like it's just for kids. Just like more content to be thrown out. Next up is going to be Daredevil versus Avengers Age of Ultron. I have not seen seasons 2 and seasons 3 of Daredevil. I've only watched the first season because I'm kind of working my way through it right now. I think Daredevil is just so incredibly written. It's definitely better than Avengers Age of Ultron. Like, I'm sorry, I love Avengers Age of Ultron. I have more nostalgia for that movie, but Daredevil is written so phenomenally. I think it deserves to move on easily. Even though I haven't finished the whole show, just watching one season of it, it clears this movie in my opinion. But they're both really good. Next up is going to be Ant-Man versus Jessica Jones. I have not seen Jessica Jones, so going to be moving on Ant-Man. I think it's a super solid like heist movie within the MCU. So for now, it's going to be moving on to the next round. Congratulations. Civil War versus Luke Cage. Haven't seen Luke Cage. I haven't really seen the Netflix shows, so either way though, I feel pretty confident in saying that Civil War is better. But yeah, for now, going to have to just move that one on. Black Widow versus Iron Fist. Haven't seen Iron Fist. Haven't heard good things. Plus, I'm a Black Widow defender. We're moving on Black Widow to the next round. I feel good about that. The Defenders versus Slingshot. Not even sure what Slingshot is. We're just going to move the Defenders on because I actually know what that is and I've heard solid things about it. Next, just going to be Black Panther versus Spider-Man Homecoming. Super solid battle we've got going on here. In my opinion, I'm going to have to go with Black Panther. I think that Homecoming, I'm just not a big fan of like the John Hughes kiddie style of Spider-Man. I feel like he's so childish in this movie, and I like the film. I think it's an enjoyable movie. I could watch it, throw it on at any time, but Tom Holland's Spider-Man is just so childish in this movie. I don't find the comedy that funny. Black Panther is just so powerful. It's such an awesome film. I think the CGI in that final battle is awful, but Killmonger's great, Chadwick's great. it's going to be moving on. Next up is going to be the Marvels versus Miss Marvel. Honestly, both somewhat rocky projects, both involving Miss Marvel. This is kind of tough. I think I'm going to move on Miss Marvel. I am more of a movie guy, honestly, but at the same time, I think Miss Marvel is the better project overall. I like the dynamic with her family. I feel like it's a bit more centered. I like some of like the history stuff they tried to do, whereas the Marvels, I feel like, was just all over the place. Next up is going to be Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 versus Ant-Man Quantumania. This is a 2023 battle. These films came out back to back. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 absolutely clears this piece of garbage, Quantumania. Quantumania was so disappointing, man. It just bothers me. And Guardians 3 is just phenomenal way to end off our characters. Next up is going to be Deadpool versus Deadpool 2. I'm going to have to say the first Deadpool here. I think it's just such a great origin story. I love how quippy it is, how funny it is. Honestly, I'm starting to get a bit of sick of like Ryan Reynolds' shtick, honestly. His quippiness, his sarcasm. Like, I don't know if I could handle a Deadpool 4, to be honest with you. But at the same time, I think it's just the better of the two. I think the villain's a bit weaker in this. Next up is going to be Echo versus Agatha. Good God. Agatha is the first Marvel show that I have not finished. MCU show, I should say. Echo, I forced myself to finish. Which one's better? I'm going to choose Echo because I finished Echo. Honestly, Agatha was literally so bad I couldn't even finish it. And listen, if you liked it, I'm happy for you. It's just not for me. It just was not for me. At that point in time, I was just so over all the Marvel stuff. I needed something fresh, and I just had to move on. So yeah, I was watching The Penguin too, which was not helping because that was such a phenomenal show. Moving on to the other side, we've got the Inhumans versus Doctor Strange. I'm not the biggest fan of the first Doctor Strange movie, but I haven't seen Inhumans, so it's going to be moving on. Next up is going to be The Runaways versus Punisher. Haven't seen either, but I'm going to be moving on Punisher because I have never heard anyone praise Runaways versus Punisher. Next up is going to be Thor Ragnarok versus Cloak and Dagger. Haven't seen Cloak and Dagger. I don't think it matters because Thor Ragnarok's amazing. Next up is going to be Avengers Infinity War versus Ant-Man and the Wasp. This is going to be Avengers Infinity War, of course. These actually kind of play off of each other with the post-credit scene, but yeah, obviously one of the greatest comic book films of all time, if not the greatest practically, versus a perfectly fine movie. I do like Ant-Man and the Wasp, though. Let me say that. Next up is going to be Loki versus Avengers Endgame. Really, really, really love Loki. I think Loki might be the best MCU show. With that being said, Avengers Endgame is better. I'm sorry. I think I'm going to have to take Endgame. It's phenomenal, one of the greatest comic book films of all time. There's no denying that. Next up is going to be Spider-Man versus What If. I couldn't even finish What If. This is easily Spider-Man. This show almost bothers me because there's so much potential here, and it's just so generic and boring and bland. I don't know how you fumble a project so interesting that bad. Next up is going to be Spider-Man 2 versus Spider-Man 3. Gonna go with Spider-Man 2, but Spider-Man 3 is a good movie. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Next up is going to be The Amazing Spider-Man versus The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I'm going to go with The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I actually really like both of these films, to a point where I will say this. I think The Amazing Spider-Man films, both of them, are better than all three Tom Holland Spider-Man films. I'll debate any of you on that. I truly believe that. I really don't care. Maybe if you guys want to roast me in the comments, you can let me know. Next up is going to be Into the Spider-Verse versus Venom. Man, Into the Spider-Verse. I'm so sick of all the Venom stuff. I'm just not even a big fan of like this silly, goofy thing we're doing with Venom or whatever. I'm not a big Tom Hardy fan as Venom. Love Tom Hardy, but I don't love him as Eddie Brock, honestly. Next up is going to be Shang-Chi versus WandaVision. Two like earlier Phase 4 kicking off that post-Endgame era type of projects in 2021. I'm going to have to choose Shang-Chi. I just think that it's a better movie, honestly. It's a better project. I think WandaVision fell off a bit at the end, whereas Shang-Chi, I feel like, was just powerful and emotional. The action was crazy through and through. I love Shang-Chi as a character, so honestly, I just like it better. Falcon and the Winter Soldier versus Far From Home. Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I strongly dislike Far From Home. I just think it's such a frustrating movie. There was so much potential wasted. The fact that Mysterio's fake. The fact that he gives Mysterio his glasses. I just don't like Spider-Man in Europe, honestly. Maybe they could have capitalized on it better, but just not a big fan of it. I think that Falcon and the Winter Soldier has its problems for sure, but I just like the character dynamic a lot better. Next up is going to be Let There Be Carnage versus No Way Home. Gonna go with No Way Home. I'm not really the biggest fan of No Way Home, and keep in mind, No Way Home is probably my most anticipated movie of all time, but the story was just so weak, in my opinion. The whole curing the villains plot, I think, is so stupid, and I can acknowledge how incredible the cameos were. I was screaming in the theater, trust me. I was with all of you guys. I just don't think it holds up on rewatch. Next is going to be Morbius versus Across the Spider-Verse. Give me a break. This is like arguably the greatest comic book film of all time versus one of the worst of all time. Next up is going to be Multiverse of Madness versus Eternals. I'm a Multiverse of Madness defender. I have no shame in saying that. I think that Sam Raimi's style is awesome. I think it's a pretty decent film. I can acknowledge it has some problems, but Scarlet Witch is so great. I love Doctor Strange in here. America Chavez is a cool little side character. The horror elements are awesome. The Illuminati is cool. I just think it's really unique, and I really don't like the Eternals. Hawkeye versus Moon Knight. I'm going to have to go with Hawkeye. I just really like Kate Bishop. I feel like Moon Knight kind of fumbled the finale in my opinion, even though I do kind of like Moon Knight, but yeah, I think it's fine. She-Hulk versus Wakanda Forever. I'm going to go Wakanda Forever. I think She-Hulk's just abysmal, honestly. Shouldn't have even been made, or at least if they did make it, just take a different approach, man. Try to focus in on the writing or something like that. Have it be closer to Daredevil with like the writing and stuff. It was just such a joke of a show. I think Wakanda Forever, very powerful, very emotional. Next up is going to be Thor Love and Thunder versus the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. I'm going to go Holiday Special. Even though it's just a holiday special, it manages to do more in like 50 minutes than I think Thor Love and Thunder does in its entire runtime. Secret Invasion versus Werewolf by Night. Easily Werewolf by Night. Secret Invasion is one of the worst things the MCU has ever made. I think that this actually has a lot of flavor to it, and it looks like we're going to have a bit of a special battle going down later on. Next up is going to be Madam Web versus Deadpool and Wolverine. We're going to be taking Deadpool and Wolverine. A lot more fun, a lot more charming. Not the biggest fan of Deadpool and Wolverine, honestly. Kind of has that same No Way Home effect where I was extremely excited for it, and then the story ended up being pretty bad. But at the same time, it's obviously better than Madam Web. Next up is going to be Kraven versus Venom The Last Dance. I'm going to take Kraven. Maybe that's a hot take. Venom The Last Dance just bothered me so much. I'm just so over the Venom goofy thing. Like, I can't handle it anymore. I really can't handle it. I'm going to take Kraven, even though they're both atrocious. Moving on to what hopefully will be a better round is going to be Captain America The First Avenger versus Captain Marvel. Two captains here. I think Captain America The First Avenger is a way better film in my opinion. I just love the whole like 1940s sort of like war film, the way we're doing like the origin, the way that we see how wholesome Captain America Steve Rogers really is. I don't think Captain Marvel, I should say, is that bad, but it's not going to be moving on. Iron Man versus Thor. I think Iron Man's just way better. I feel like it's just written a lot better. Tony Stark's a lot more interesting, and I really like the Shakespearean elements of Thor, but just not that good of a movie through and through. Next up is going to be a bit of Avengers versus a little bit of Hulk. Easily the Avengers. I don't like the Hulk at all. I feel like there's like some revisionist history on this movie because of Brave New World. This movie's not good. I don't really care what anybody says. In my opinion, it's really not good. The Avengers, one of the greatest comic book films of all time. The team-up dynamic, so many iconic moments, great story. Winter Soldier versus Iron Man 3. I'm going Winter Soldier. Really like Iron Man 3. The only problem is it's going up against an absolute nuclear bomb that is Winter Soldier. Next up, Guardians of the Galaxy 1 versus Guardians of the Galaxy 2. I'm taking Guardians of the Galaxy 1. I feel like throughout the entire story, it's a bit more consistent, I guess you could say. It's funny. It has better set pieces. I think that the character dynamics and the emotions are a bit harder. There is the Yondu death at the end, but I still feel like all the stuff with Peter's mother is better, and I also like the soundtrack better. Next up is going to be Daredevil versus Ant-Man. I've only seen one season of Daredevil, and I can still tell you it's better than Ant-Man. Really, really like Ant-Man. Daredevil is just ridiculous in my opinion. I think it's phenomenal from what I've seen so far. Civil War versus Black Widow. I'm taking Civil War without question. Civil War is just phenomenally written. It's as simple as that. The dynamic between Tony and Tony and Steve Rogers. Who's right, who's wrong, I guess we'll never know. You could all just have your own opinions on that. Defenders versus Black Panther. I gotta go Black Panther because I have not seen Defenders. Sorry, I'm trying to speed through here because there's so many matches. Miss Marvel versus Guardians 3. I'm easily taking Guardians 3. I think Miss Marvel, even though, I did have it win here, it has so many problems, and I really like Kamala Khan, but hopefully we'll see her in Doomsday in like a better role or something like that. But Guardians 3 was just such a great send-off for our characters. Next up is going to be Echo versus Deadpool. Easily Deadpool. This was basically just like a battle for who's less worse. Deadpool's easily a better film. Moving on to the right side here, I'm going to have to take Doctor Strange just because I haven't seen Punisher. Not the biggest fan of Doctor Strange, honestly. Probably going to lose next round, but either way, I'm going to be taking it there. Thor Ragnarok versus Infinity War. Very, very interesting. With that being said, Infinity War is the better movie. I feel like Thor Ragnarok kind of sets up Infinity War to some extent, or at least a part of Infinity War, you could say, a corner of Infinity War, but man, it's just so grand. It's so vast. It's so incredible. The spectacle is unbelievable. Some incredible character moments. It's one of the greatest of all time. Next up, we've got Spider-Man versus Endgame. This is tough because one of them is closing off a 23 movie saga. One of them starts a trilogy, and it's one of the greatest comic book films of all time. I'm going to have to go Endgame here. I think they're very close. I think they're extremely close, but by a hair, I'm going to take Endgame. Next up, we got Spider-Man 2 versus The Amazing Spider-Man 2. So two Spider-Man 2s. I'm going to take Spider-Man 2. I just think that The Amazing Spider-Man 2, as much as I love it, still has some problems. Spider-Man 2, the Doc Ock stuff, the train sequence, all the emotions, Peter trying to fight inside with what he should do. It's just some really amazing stuff. Shang-Chi versus Into the Spider-Verse. Listen, Shang-Chi, you had an amazing run. I love this movie. Into the Spider-Verse is just better. Broke barriers for animation. It's incredible. Next up's going to be Falcon and the Winter Soldier versus No Way Home. I'm going to have to choose No Way Home. I don't really love No Way Home that much. Like I said, Falcon and the Winter Soldier I also really like, but I just think it has way too many problems, even though both of these are pretty flawed in my opinion. Next up is going to be Across the Spider-Verse versus Multiverse of Madness. Across the Spider-Verse. Again, one of the greatest comic films of all time, like in my opinion, top 3 versus Multiverse of Madness. Still love Multiverse of Madness though. Hawkeye, Wakanda Forever. This is kind of tough. These are both like 7 out of 10s for me. I think that I am going to go with, wow, this is actually like the toughest battle yet, because these are both kind of just like whatever projects in my opinion. Like they're cool, they're good, but I am a movie guy at the end of the day, so I think I'm going to go with Wakanda Forever. I do like the dynamic with Namor. I don't really like the way, actually, I'm going to choose Hawkeye. I'm going to change my opinion. As emotional as this movie is, I really like Hawkeye. I like Kate Bishop. I like the Christmas theme. I like the New York setting that we're in. Wakanda Forever, I don't really like the way it ends and stuff. I think it's okay. Next up, we got Werewolf by Night and the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special. I love the Guardians and I love James Gunn. I think I'm going to take Werewolf by Night though. I feel like it really did something to like change the way that we look at these special presentations. Michael Giacchino really cooked here with his first like directorial debut here basically. It was really great. Deadpool and Wolverine versus Kraven. Garbage versus a pretty solid X-Men movie. I'm going to be moving Deadpool and Wolverine to the next round. And we've got 2 Deadpools across from each other here. Moving on to the next round. Good God, I am so out of breath. I'm trying to do this in like one take, basically like a oneer. We've got Iron Man versus the First Avenger. Super solid matchup here. By a little bit, I'm going to be taking Iron Man. I do think that the montage in the middle, this movie can be a bit slow, and I think that Red Skull is a worse villain than the Ironmonger in here. So I'm going to be moving on Iron Man. I just love Tony Stark. We've got the Avengers versus Winter Soldier. I'm going to be taking Winter Soldier. Personal favorite of mine. I just love the Winter Soldier. The writing's phenomenal. It's not even like the Avengers did anything wrong here. It's just that I think the Winter Soldier is just so incredible. Next up's going to be the Guardians of the Galaxy versus Daredevil. Listen, I know that all you Daredevil lovers probably love the show, and I agree with you. I just love Guardians of the Galaxy. It's going to be moving on. One of my favorite movies of all time. I love it to death. Civil War versus Black Panther. Give me Civil War. I feel like sometimes Black Panther's a bit choppy with the way it's sort of structured, and again, I think technically it's pretty poorly made, honestly. Like the CGI looks really rough at times. Next up, we've got Guardians 3 versus Deadpool. Give me Guardians 3. Love Guardians 3. I love Deadpool 2, but honestly, I think that this movie will stand the test of time more, whereas people might get sick of Ryan Reynolds' shtick, to be honest, kind of like how I did. Next up, we've got, hold on, stay with me, Infinity War versus Doctor Strange. Goodbye, Doctor Strange. I'm not even really a big fan of the first Doctor Strange movie, honestly. Maybe it's just me. I think it's a bit overrated, honestly, but Infinity War, obviously an incredible film. Spider-Man 2 versus Endgame. Phenomenally written, Spider-Man 2. I'm going to take Endgame. It's such a great conclusion to this saga that we've been watching. It does all these characters so right, and I love it. I love both of these Spider-Man movies to death. Like, you guys have no idea, but gonna have to take Endgame over those. Next up's gonna be Into the Spider-Verse versus No Way Home. In my opinion, this is a clearing. I think Into the Spider-Verse is way better. By the way, I just realized something, and I don't know what's going on in my brain right now. I meant to choose Spider-Man over Endgame. I do like the first Spider-Man over Endgame, and I do like the first Spider-Man over Spider-Man 2. I don't know why that slipped my mind. Sorry about that. I think the first Spider-Man, it's arguably the greatest superhero origin film of all time. I think it's better than Endgame. I'm sorry, I kind of missed the mark there. It's a better film. Just making a little quick edit there, but we have a new film here now. Next up, yep, like I was saying, Into the Spider-Verse, I just think it's way better than No Way Home. I think No Way Home has so many problems with it. Next up's going to be Across the Spider-Verse versus Hawkeye. Across the Spider-Verse clears. Hawkeye, its finale is just so rough, man. Honestly, with the way Kingpin kind of goes out or whatever you want to say. Next up, we've got, what is this? Werewolf by Night versus Deadpool and Wolverine. I'm going to go Deadpool and Wolverine, even though I think Werewolf by Night might be better. This is more of like a relevant film that I'm actually going to be thinking about, so quite honestly, it gets the edge just for that reason. Honestly, that's like a participation trophy at that rate. Next up is going to be Iron Man versus Winter Soldier. I'm going to be taking Winter Soldier. I love both of these movies. Winter Soldier, though, I love the espionage secret elements to it. I love the way that Steve Rogers has to like turn his back on everything that he knows and his morals. Let's flip it over to this side. Infinity War versus Spider-Man. I'm going to be taking Spider-Man. Call me crazy, I just love this origin story. Again, I know that I messed up here. It was just an accident. I love this film. I just love it. It just sits so deeply with me. I'm about 2 months older than this movie. This movie came out May 2002. I was born July 2002. So this movie, it's nostalgic for me. I love it to death. Next up is going to be Across the Spider-Verse versus Into the Spider-Verse. Super intense battle. I actually prefer Across. I think it builds on everything that Into the Spider-Verse introduced. Into the Spider-Verse might be a more complete story, but I think Across is still just so incredible, and it's one of my favorite films of all time, so it's going to be moving on to the next round. It looks like there's some type of error or something, but unfortunately, Deadpool and Wolverine is going to be automatically moving on to the final four. Don't know how that happens, but I guess we're just going to have to move on and just going to have to deal with it. And the same is going to go for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I'm sorry, guys. I know I messed up a bit here, but that's just the way that this was formatted. I did not make this. Next up, we've got Guardians of the Galaxy versus Civil War. I'm going to be taking Guardians of the Galaxy. I love the family dynamic that we have here between our ragtag group. I just love these people. I love when they're together. I just think that they're just so wonderful together. I just think this is such an emotional story. It's so funny. James Gunn cooked. Next up, we've got Winter Soldier versus Guardians. These are like my top 2 MCU films. I'm going to have to take Winter Soldier. These are literally my top 2 MCU films. Winter Soldier is going to have to take the cake here, unfortunately, even though it's super close. Next up, it's going to be Across the Spider-Verse versus Spider-Man 1. I'm going to go Across the Spider-Verse. I think it's a revolutionary film. It changed the game. Spider-Man was a revolutionary film for its time, but Across the Spider-Verse, I love that movie, man. I remember sitting in the theater watching it like, wow, I just watched one of the greatest comic book films of all time. And just like that, we were down to our final 4. Honestly, these movies got kind of lucky because of the way this was set up, but it doesn't matter. Deadpool and Wolverine versus Across the Spider-Verse. This is not even close. Listen, I understand there's Deadpool and Wolverine lovers out there. I was so excited for this movie. I probably made 85 videos on my channel talking about this movie as we were leading up to it, but honestly, it kind of disappointed me because the story is just so rough. Across the Spider-Verse is some of the greatest writing I've ever seen in a comic book film ever. I love it to death. And finally, we've got Guardians of the Galaxy 3 versus Winter Soldier. I just think Winter Soldier is better. I think Guardians of the Galaxy 3 has some issues when it comes to stakes. I would have liked if somebody died in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Maybe that's a stupid complaint, but at the end of the day, that's just how I feel, honestly. I'm sorry. And our final battle on this list is going to be Captain America the Winter Soldier and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I'm going to be honest with you guys. These two films are both in my top 3 greatest comic book films of all time. My number 1 is The Batman. I'm going to be honest. That's just my personal opinion. I'm going to have to go Winter Soldier here. I just think that Winter Soldier stands the test of time. When we get beyond the Spider-Verse, maybe this film will jump above that because we'll actually know where the story goes. But for now, I think that Captain America, the Winter Soldier, is going to be winning this bracket. And that is going to be the champion of this bracket. I am so out of breath right now. My mouth is extremely dry. But thank you guys so much for watching. Let me know which matchups you thought were like messed up. Which ones you thought I should have chose over the others. What team should have actually won. Thank you guys so much for watching though. Let me know what videos you guys want to see next. I love you guys and I'll see you in the next video.